Welcome to the Jewel Exchange with Spit Gems. Today, we have the incredible honor and privilege of speaking to a man who is not only a pioneer, but a legend in multiple fields. Now, for most of my viewers, you're already familiar with his handiwork and his legacy, but just in case, for those who are not, the original welterweight UFC world champion. Held the belt for 3 years, 4 title defenses. That was not enough. He went on to train 12 world champions, people like Jens Pulver, Mark Coleman, and the list goes on and on. He also did television broadcasting for Showtime and ESPN. He has also trained and instructed military personnel and policemen. If that was not enough, this man is still a fighter, an active boots-on-the-ground solution provider in the field of agriculture. Ladies and gentlemen, Pat, the Croatian Sensation, Miletich.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you having me.
Really appreciate you taking the time to do this, Pat. Thank you so much.
No, it's awesome. It's nice that we want this information to get out to everybody because we want everybody to understand the severity of the problem and understand the solution. And how easily we could fix this is if people started, raising hell about it.
Indeed. Well, I really look forward to learning, and I think it's going to be really beneficial to my viewers. But just to get it started, Pat, I know a bit about your story, and I gotta say it's one of my absolute favorites as a former construction worker, someone who spent a lot of time on the sites. You had a fateful encounter with a coworker one day, and that led you to a new world. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I guess that's the best. Yeah, that's actually, pretty accurate. I left college early. My mother had heart problems and was bouncing at 2 different clubs, bartending and bouncing. And then during the day, I was pouring concrete. And then a coworker, at the concrete job, actually my boss, superior at least, was a black belt in karate and said he could kick a wrestler's ass that karate men could. And this is before the UFC, of course, a long time before the UFC. And said he could kick a wrestler's ass. He was from Kentucky. And I asked him, you ever had an Iowa wrestler grab a hold of you? And he said, no. And I said, we can go out in the field at lunchtime or whatever. He actually suggested it. And I threw him around. I didn't beat him up or anything, but I threw him around it. He invited me to the karate kickboxing gym, and kind of the rest was history. I'd boxed a couple of years in middle school, early when I was young, but yeah, that's how I got involved in martial arts in general.
Incredible. Now, you've done. I mean, your career is obviously one of the most decorated, Pat, and it stretches far out from you. It didn't just benefit you, it benefited so many people, so many families. One thing I did notice about your record, though, your list of submission victories. I mean, it reads like a glossary of submissions, right? It's rear naked choke, it's triangle, it's bulldog, it's key lock. I wanted to ask you, just out of curiosity, was there ever a submission that you trained for, something you really had your eyes on, you really wanted to pull off and just never got to lock it in the cage?
That never crossed my mind, to be honest with you. It was whatever just showed up, you know what I mean? Whatever mistake somebody would make to put themselves into a position. I mean, I worked for some arm triangles and stuff like that in my career, but I never really thought, man, it'd be really cool to catch somebody with this or that. I mean, it was just you go in and you move with your opponent until they make a mistake and capitalize on it. Generally, is kind of the way I thought.
Awesome. Now, Showdown in the Meadowlands, a legendary night. This is East Rutherford, New Jersey, 2001, June. And at the time, this was exciting for New Yorkers because this was about as close to New York as MMA got back in those days.
Right.
Now, you highlight KO, second round, nasty head kick over your rival, Shoney Carter, who was trying to get one up on you, you know what I mean, and redeem himself. just a magical moment for you. You're on top of the world and your life has just changed for the better. Now, a short, not even 3 months after that, 9/11 unfolds in New York City and life changes for the worse for the entire world. Can you just take me through what that headspace was like for you going from that high to that low?
Well, it was at that time the rematch with Shoney, uh, because I had lost the title before that to Carlos Newton, and the UFC gave me, eventually it moved into a Matt Hughes or me type or somebody from another camp type situation. I was the person who had to make that decision to fight Carlos for the belt. So, but anyway, in my contract it said that if I came back and won another fight, that I was in an automatic rematch clause. That's all I had to do. So I would be fighting Carlos Newton for the title. So, that fight with Shoney, um, in my mind was a not not going to be hard to win. Problem was is that weigh-ins were the same day as the fight, and I had a brand new baby, a brand new gym, a brand new house. I had to win that fight to put the down payment down on that house to have enough money. So I was under a lot of stress, and so I had a lot of trouble making weight. And I put myself in serious, serious trouble physically uh, with that weight cut. I made weight, but then I started to go downhill pretty quick. And back then it was perfectly fine to go to the hospital to get IVs. So I said to my manager, if you don't get me to the hospital, because remember, I weighed in that morning, the fight was that night, and I was in big trouble. I said, if you don't get me to the hospital to at least get some IVs in me, this fight's not happening. I'm in trouble. He said, all right, I'm sending Tom Sauer. Some people have heard this story, of course. He took me to the hospital in Newark, New Jersey. The whole hospital is nothing but glass. Like there's no walls, it's just glass. And Tom Sauer has severe Tourette syndrome. And Tom Sauer, around black people, has a real problem and a propensity to blurt out the N word. And so you have to understand when you're in severe mental, physical trouble from cutting weight, from severe dehydration to a level that most people will never experience unless you're on the verge of death. Uh, don't understand how weak you are mentally. So I'm walking up to the hospital and I see all everyone in the whole hospital is black, right? And I go, dude, you can't come in here with me. You're gonna blurt out the N word, and you're gonna get us kicked out, and I'm not gonna get my IVs, and I'm not gonna get my fight. I'm gonna lose my house. My world's gonna fall apart, dude. You can't come in here. And he goes, shut up, dude. He goes, I'm a paramedic in Dade County, Florida. He goes, it's fine. I deal with this every day. And I'm like, all right, whatever. We go in, and he says to the nurse behind the reception desk, he goes, hey, my friend's severely dehydrated. He absolutely has to have immediate IVs, and then blurts out the N-word 3 times in a row. He's chirping like a bird. And she goes, say what? She goes, say what? And I'm sitting there freaking out going, I can't believe I'm experiencing this. And listen, I have severe Tourette's. He's in big trouble. He needs help. Please understand. And she looks at me and goes, oh, shit. And so they get me 3 liters of water. They put 3 liters of saline in me, revived me enough for the fight. I'm seeing double during the fight, but am able to, what I did, my goal with Shoney was to just wear him out for the first round, get mounted on him and make him fight. Then second round, go out and knock him out, which I did. Anyway, that's the crazy story with that. But yeah, I was at my house at the time when the first plane hit, and then went to the gym, and of course canceled classes, and we just sat in the lobby of the gym watching the TV and watched the second plane hit, and just couldn't believe it. And I said right away, I said, okay, it's Osama bin Laden. That's who they're going to say it is, right? We knew that was what they were gearing up to do to us, to run the old banana in the tailpipe bullshit on us. And so, of course, they started running with that game, and so, no, it was troubling for all Americans. Obviously, it was, but not long after, everybody who I was running with anyway started recognizing that this might be an inside job to start taking our freedoms from us. And it turns out, the Patriot Act and everything else that was put in place, that's exactly what it was for, right?
Indeed. Yeah, thank you for that, Pat. Yeah, definitely a day I certainly remember. I was on the couch with my daughter. She was maybe 6 months old, and then went up to the roof of my building in Brooklyn, and the view that I have from my roof in Brooklyn was you can't beat it. You know what I mean? It's just watch the whole thing, just in awe.
Wow.
It was a strange day in my neighborhood. I'm from a very rough neighborhood in Brooklyn called East New York, and a lot of problems in the neighborhood. That day when we were on the roof watching the chaos, it's basically the only day I can remember from living out there when there were no problems in the neighborhood. Everybody was together, sense of unity, everything just went out the window, all the nonsense and bullshit. Life changing day for everyone, indeed. But it seems like a day that woke a lot of people up, or at least was the catalyst for a lot of people beginning to go, wait a minute, maybe I should start to look this way. And you've done quite a bit of work since then in helping people understand certain truths and get a grip on certain peculiarities. Talk to us about Soil Savior.
The mission for me, because it was roughly 35 years ago, where I decided that I was going to turn pro in kickboxing at the time, and I couldn't breathe my entire childhood. I had respiratory illness and all kinds of other illnesses driven by, being on the family farm a lot when I was a little kid, uh, ag chemicals, and then black mold, a lot of black mold in my mother's house. It was bad, right? So my respiratory system was destroyed. I was a good wrestler. I was a great, I was really good at football, all state, all that sort of stuff. But I just couldn't breathe. It depended on the day who I was going to beat in wrestling. I could beat a world-class guy one day and then lose to somebody. I could be beating somebody, 15-1 and just gas, and they'd come back on me, right? That's how bad my respiratory system was. And I worked my ass off. And so when I was going to turn pro in kickboxing, I decided to do research and try and figure out how to heal my own respiratory system, because medical doctors, allopathic medicine was severely failing me my entire life. So I got tired of it. So after I did a lot of research for months, I put together the substances, the natural existing concentrated nutrients that I felt were going to do the number for me. And 10 days later, my respiratory system was healed. So it only took 10 days after a lifetime of misery. And imagine what I could have done had I been able to breathe like a champ, my whole life. So once I healed it, I went from sparring 3 to 4 rounds with the top boxers in the world to being able to go 10, 12 rounds with them, literally 10 days later. And then all of a sudden everything changed for me. Now I'm running, just over 5-minute miles for 10 miles. I'm dunking basketballs at 5'10" and bench pressing 375
Hold
pounds.
on, hold on. Pat Miletich can dunk?
Not now.
Amazing.
Not now. But I used to. I used to be able to. Dude, I worked the whole. Just as part of my workouts, I would go up to the basketball court and just work on, just jumping and grabbing the rim over and over and over. That's all I did the whole summer. Worked on that, for just part of my workouts when I do my sprints, hill runs, all that sort of stuff that I would finish with a lot of jumping. And so,
Nice.
but anyway, that's what, healing myself is what led to winning a world title. And then I used a lot of those same formulas for my athletes. And a lot of the other coaches were always asking, and other fighters were like, dude, what do you have your guys on? What are they using for supplements? And I just go, you're never going to know. I'll never tell you. And because nobody did know. Nobody could figure it out. They were going to, fucking GNC and, other places, and going to these supplement companies, the garbage made in laboratories, these synthetic,
Stepped on a million times.
Yeah, just straight garbage, and nothing to do with actual real nutrients. And so they didn't know, and they weren't ever going to know. So that's kind of how everything got going for me, But what I did was I recognized when I was teaching kids karate and kickboxing in the 90s, there were kids coming to me, boys being brought to me with this thing called autism. And I would ask the parents, what's going on? Why is your kid sick? There's a reason why. Nobody asks why. They just go, oh, he's sick. The doctor's going to give him these fucking, synthetic chemical pills. and deal with the symptoms instead of asking, why is your child sick? What is causing it, right? So it's always the environment. What is in the environment? What has entered the child's body from the environment that has caused the issues, right? And no matter how it got there, synthetic chemicals and heavy metals are always the culprit, right? That's what destroys the immune system. That's what
The
destroys
common
brain
denominator.
function. Everything, every time. And so I was just asking a lot of questions, right? And doing a lot of research and trying to figure things out. And then fighters from around the world would come and train with my team, and they would show up and they'd go to our grocery stores and they'd come back and go, dude, you guys are being poisoned. And I go, yeah, I recognize it, but that reinforced it in my head that this was not by accident, that this was a deliberate destruction of American health, mental, physical, hormonal, all of it, right? And that led me to the soil. And then once I realized what they had done to the soil, and everybody kind of knows in the back of your mind or your gut's telling you, but they're straight up have mass murdered 1 billion acres of our soil. That without the living microorganisms and bacteria and fungi in that soil, we're screwed. And that's why when we look around us, all the people that are obese, the sickness, the mental, physical, hormonal destruction of Americans is can be directly correlated to the destruction of the soil, right? So when I explain this to people, they don't quite get it until I say, listen, those microorganisms, those microscopic organisms in the soil are the only thing on the planet that God or nature created, whatever you believe, that have the ability to ingest harmful elements, heavy metals and synthetic chemicals, and convert them to what are called essential fatty acids, or things that benefit you. It benefits the plants, benefits the raccoon, benefits the worms, benefits the birds, all the water, all animals, all fish, and all humans. And without those nutrients, those 90 essential colloidal nutrients in that form, with the oxygen removed off the molecule and the carbon put on the molecule, we are just ingesting shit constantly with heavy metals and synthetic chemicals and trashing our health and our children's health.
And this is the process of chelation you're referring to, right? When
Chelation is a removal. Chelation is another word for removal. So there are binders, substances that go into, say, a cell in a human being or a mammal, animal, whatever, and will bind with heavy metals and synthetics, and then your cell will release that, and that's the chelation, the removal of the heavy metals and synthetics. But the microorganisms in the soil, and those microorganisms, many of them end up in our body to benefit us as well, if the soil's healthy, of course, that don't chelate, but they convert. They convert the heavy metals and synthetics into beneficial essential fatty acids. That's the only thing that's going to make you a superhuman. That's the only way to do it, right?
So the product that you've developed, Humoggenics, talk to us about that.
So my product, or my substance, I should say, God created this. I did, right?
Absolutely.
So God created it. It is comes from the most nutrient-rich peat bog, and a peat bog, another word for that would be swamp. Most nutrient-rich peat bog found on the planet, and it comes from about 50 feet below the surface, where all the nutrients of 1,500 different types of plants have concentrated into a sediment layer of the most amazing substance on the planet. And it's also got the ancient 60,000-year-old microbial life that's not been touched by synthetic chemicals, heavy metals, all the garbage in modern society. And when we pull that out of the ground, it is a proprietary non-chemical, because a lot of humates, humic fulvic acids, come from like coal deposits, which are fossilized, dead seafloor beds, which are fossilized. So they're not alive anymore. They're not a living organism that are going to benefit you, right? So we can convert it into a really fine nano-sized powder, and then that can be used for depending on the grade of where we've refined it, can be used for agriculture, can be used for livestock, and can be used for human consumption. So the goal for human cells and gut health is mitochondrial health by feeding the mitochondria, which are the furnace of the cell, right? They generate energy. So if you put the right carbon bonded nutrients into the mitochondria, it's going to generate cellular energy. Also raising oxygen levels, so it'll bind with hydrogen and create, 30 to 50 more percent oxygen in the cell, which is obviously extremely beneficial, right? And then it also assists in the conversion and removal of heavy metals and synthetics out of the cell. So that's how you can change someone's outlook on life and health. So that's it. It's very simple. It's the substances, and there's numerous ones out there, okay, that God has created that have the ability to assist the cell and the mitochondria in correct function, removing the toxins, the heavy metals, and fixing gut biome, right? Having the right bugs in your belly to assist in digestion and creating, nutrients that make sense and are going to assist your body in healing, for instance. So it's the germ. Let me get to this germ theory. So germ theory started in 1870, and that's when they started saying disinfect everything, stay away from somebody, don't cough on somebody, all this shit. The germaphobes, creation of the germaphobes. So I just ask people this: put a dome over you and your family, a airtight dome, glass dome, that's got a filter system on it. And it's you and your kids and your wife inside of there, and you can filter. That filtration system can filter out viruses, bacteria, molds, yeasts, all these different bugs, right? These germs. Or you can filter out heavy metals and synthetic chemicals. Which one of the two groups do you want filtered out with that filtration system?
We want the heavy metals out of there.
Right, because it's the heavy metals and synthetic chemicals that destroy your immune system, that make you vulnerable to the bugs that are already in you.
Right.
Right? So the good and the bad bugs being at balance, that's called homeostasis. That's when your immune system is functioning correctly and you're not sick. You don't have, say, for instance, arthritis, which is an infection in your joints. They don't tell you that's an infection, but it's an infection, right? That's your immune system going sideways. So you got to fix the immune system to get rid of the arthritis. Respiratory illness. Generally, that's inflammation, right? High blood pressure, inflammation, mental issues, inflammation, digestive problems, muscle soreness, all these things, fatigue, excess lactic acid in workouts when you shouldn't have it. That's low oxygen levels. All these things are fixed by the 90 essential colloidal carbon-bonded nutrients, not the shit that they're putting in vitamins and minerals in the stores.
Now, Pat, just my question on the soil itself, right? What incentivizes, on a large scale, what incentivizes agriculture enthusiasts and participants to circumvent using something organic for their crop yield? Why are they incentivized to use something laden with heavy metals or synthetic shit?
It's a combination, you got to go back to the 1970s, called the Green Revolution, when they went to farmers and said, number one, you got to understand, farmers at that point were losing their asses. A lot of them had already lost their farms. They were in big trouble. 1971, Richard Nixon, the president at the time, took us off the gold standard. And I remember, what was it, probably 72, being a little kid with my mom and my grandma at the Albia Farmers National Bank, whatever, I think that's what it was called back then, at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. It's pitch black out, and there's nobody there. We're standing in front of the bank. We're waiting for that fucker to open, because my grandma's going to get her money out of there because she knows what's coming. And then as the morning goes on, before the bank opens, all the farm families, all the farmers start creating a line down the block and around the block, because they know what's coming too. So it was a run on the banks at the time by the farmers, and a lot of farmers lost their asses. So then you get the chemical companies come to them and go, And mind you, these are a lot of the same chemical companies from Weimar, Germany in the 30s, before the Holocaust, when everybody was sick, right? And so these chemical companies come to the farmers and go, man, look at our data. We got, look at the yields. You guys can make massive amounts of money. You can do this, you can do that. So it was financial incentivized, saving farmers, right? The green revolution, they called it. And we're going to use this nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus, synthetic, created from motor oil, right? And we're going to put that down in your fields, and you're going to grow massive crops. Only one problem. When you grow plants synthetically with fake molecules of nutrients, you create plants with no immune system. Well, to protect it from bugs, we got to spray pesticides, which are weapons of war, right? Herbicides cause massive hormonal destruction in children and adults, right? We see it all around us right now. And then the fungicides, which are horribly damaging as well. So these are, a combination of weapons of war and failed antibiotics. And so what they do is they go in because you've got sick crops that were grown with shit nutrients, not real nutrients. Those plants are weak. They have no immune system, so nature is going to flat out destroy it, right? So they have to go in and denature the soil. They have to mass murder all the living organisms in the soil so that the plants can be harvested and you can get your crop and the farmer can make his money. So it's all about money. It's all about miseducation. These chemical companies have hijacked and taken over all, and I mean all, agriculture schools in every university across the country, just as pharmaceutical took out and took over all medical schools in all universities. So it's all chemical company garbage.
Wow. Wow. Just the layering in there is crazy. The adding of problems under the guise of solutions, like spraying them now because the plants themselves have no immunity. How does this affect? What effect is this having? Or better yet, what is the difference of us when we are ingesting plants that are nutrient dense, that come from rich, healthy soil, as opposed to these plants that are suffering with their own immunity and lacking nutrients?
Let me give you an example. Okay, for anybody out there that's going to hear this, all those people that watch mixed martial arts, what are the Eastern Europeans doing? The Kazakhstanis, the Chechens, the Russians, what are they doing in the UFC right now?
Kill everybody! Dominating.
They're kicking the shit out of everybody, right? You know why that is? One, because they've probably had a little tougher life, but two, the main reason is hard training, and the nutrients in the soil that they eat their food from is untouched by chemicals. They are eating nutrient-dense food. They are correctly developing from childhood into adulthood with bone structure, tendon strength, muscle strength, proper hormonal levels, testosterone levels, and they're monsters. They're human monsters. And that's the difference, right? That's the difference. Wow. That's why these guys are so. And for anybody out there that's dealt with world-class wrestlers, until you are grabbed by someone at that level, because there's got to be, obviously, they have to be very technical, they have to be very fast, they have to have great endurance, power. I've wrestled with guys, Olympic medalists. I've fought a couple Olympic medalists. When those guys grab a hold of you, it's a whole different world. It is not human. It is not a normal human that is grabbing a hold of you. It is an exceptional amount of power. And if you take your knuckles and hit your desk, that's what you're grabbing. That's what it feels like.
Right.
Somebody that solid.
Oak tree.
That's the way all humans should be, though.
That's how we're all supposed to be.
That's how we're all supposed to be. Yes, 100%.
And the road back to that. Now, I've heard you speak about how this is something that you are doing for your children and for your children's children. This is who it matters for the most.
Right. So, it's the thing is a lot of Americans are like, the parents out there, it's like, if somebody kicked in my front door and they were going to kill my children, I'd jump in between them. No, you wouldn't. You know why you wouldn't? Because you haven't taken the time to understand why. why everyone around you is sick. To take the time to actually investigate and dig and dig and dig and go, holy shit, this is how I have to protect my children. I have to make sure that I put these types of substances in my children's body to clean all the bullshit out of them that they've been putting into the environment on purpose, and make sure my children develop correctly, hormonally, physically, mentally, all those things. So look, the problem is that humans are too trusting, and most people are, you know, when we look at someone who's a bad person, most of the time they've been traumatized in their life so severely that they've gone that direction, right? They want
Right.
other people, they want justice in the world, so everybody should feel what they felt, right? Then you got other people who go the other way and want to protect everyone because they don't want people to experience that level of bullshit that they had to deal with when they were kids,
Yep.
right? So that's kind of my mentality is, listen, everybody out there, whether they're bad, good, whatever, indifferent, have the ability to understand that all the trauma that's been caused has been by design by the predator class of this planet. They've always done it to us, right? And they've always pitted us against each other. Oh, look, that guy's got a different skin color. You should hate him. That's a level of retardation I can't even fathom, right? But that's what they've done to us. And we have to wake up to that fact, shut off your TV, and understand that they've poisoned all of us. When they put that in the soil and put that in the food, they're not poisoning the left, the right, brown people, yellow people, white. They're poisoning everybody, right?
Everybody.
They're doing it on purpose. They hate every single one of us. So we all have to wake up and just say, no more, man. And it's the Hopi Rainbow Warrior prophecy. That old ancient prophecy is that all the warriors of the rainbow of all different colors and backgrounds are going to come together and heal the soil and heal mankind. And that's
Incredible.
I didn't know anything about that when I was on this quest. And a guy goes, dude, do you know about the Hopi prophecy? And I go, I don't know what you're talking about. He goes, you're part of it, obviously, because that's your mission. That's what you're doing. And you're educating people on how we can fix this problem. So all we need is more crop dusters and more tank sprayers to put behind tractors, and we can put the microbes, the bugs,
Back in the
all of the
soil.
bacteria, the fungi, all the proper balances of the bugs back in the soil to convert all the poisons into beneficial nutrients. We heal the plants, we heal the water, we heal the rain, we heal mankind, we heal everything.
Incredible. Incredible, Pat. Now, Pat, you mentioned uh, God created this substance. This is not a product, really. This is something God created for an intended purpose.
Right.
Now, what role does God play? Obviously, a big one in your life, but in your journey and in your mission and your ability to be fearless in the way that you convey this message, what role does God play in all that?
I wouldn't say any of it's been fearless, man. I wouldn't say any of it's been fearless. It's just been that my desire to see a better world for my children and for, everybody's kids. Because when I look, and I've said this before to a couple different people, when I look at mankind in general, adults, including me, I don't see enough redeemable qualities that make us worth saving. But
Mm,
my children and your children are worth saving, right?
absolutely.
So ultimately, that's really what this comes down to. And when I just see the programming, the ease of programming that we can absorb and go and just treat other human beings like shit, man. That's we're way more intelligent. We're way more spiritually connected than that, right? And that's the disconnect through these poisons that they put in our soil and in our food and in our water is deliberate to disconnect us from our creator, right? And it's easy to trick scared, sick, fearful people, right? Come to us. We've got all the answers. This is why this is happening. This is why you're sick. Come on in. I know you're on 21 pharmaceutical products, but let's put you on 23, right? And people do it. And dude, 70% of Americans are on pharmaceutical
Indeed.
chemicals, right? On chemicals. So anyway, back to God. Back to God. Look, even if I didn't believe in a creator, the predator class of this planet that was, well, that we were told they were given dominion over the planet, right? Well, by what they're doing, by destroying all the living organisms in the soil, genetically modifying plants. Now they're genetically modifying microorganisms. They're trying to genetically modify all the insects, all the trees, and human beings with the latest round of the shit they put in you. That's altering your DNA. And your DNA is the signature of your creator on his artwork. And you're going to allow them to destroy that and convert it into a different signature. By who? It's not God, I tell you that.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So like I say, even if I didn't believe in God, they believe in it because they hate him and they hate us and they want us destroyed. Period.
Absolutely. Which leads to just another question to touch on that one. Me personally, I have no religion that I claim to be my own religion. I've studied many religions. I've studied all the Abrahamic ones for sure. I have the Vedic literature, Bhagavad Gita. I've done quite a bit of searching and trying to understand myself and the world around me. Although I have lost religion, I was a Christian, evangelical Christian at one time. Although I've lost religion, I have not lost God. And my creator is still very dear and near to me. Dare I say, I'm more firm in my connection to the creator now than I ever was. But I framed all of that to ask the question, how important is it for us to look past the dogmatic differences in our religion and focus on something like this that benefits everyone and is complementary to God's intentions?
Well, just whittle it down to, and for me, I follow the guy that flipped over tax collectors' tables in the temple and chased them with bullwhips. I dig that guy. I
No
dig
doubt.
that guy. But it is, we only have one creator. In my mind, there is a master of the universe, technically. I guess is the best way
Absolutely.
to put it. And and he's about to bring down the hammer on all of us. And we better wake up because our kids again don't deserve what's coming because it's shit's about to go sideways. Yeah. So people better wake up and understand who the manipulators are. When all the races and religions can go after each other and criticize each other and attack each other, except one group, one rare group of people, a sect, a tiny small sect, one group on the planet that we can't criticize. And ask yourself, well, who controls the monetary systems? Who controls everything? Who controls all the information? Who controls everything? And if I criticize them, my life is over. My life is over. All I gotta
Crazy.
say is, it's look, it's just too obvious. It's too obvious, and I don't know if they're just worker bees. We know there's some very high ups that we don't even, are never mentioned in the news, of course, but we
Right.
know where they are and we know who they are and we know their bloodlines. Um, all I gotta say is that, yeah, I mean, I've got friends of all different walks of life. And when we hold conversations, we hold very real conversations like this. And those are the only kind of people I want to hang out with. As long as
Likewise.
they're aware of the severity of the situation and they're trying to fix the problems and have the answers, right? And that's really what this comes down to is if you're not coming to the table with solutions and just bitching, then you're just bitching.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Pat. Pat, now you obviously are a very intelligent man, seem to be very well read. If you had to make a reference, suggest a piece of literature to someone, what would that be?
Wow.
And it could be anything, any literature of any kind.
I would say uh, for every person graduating from high school should have to read The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin. Because once you read that, the world looks different and you understand the world completely at that point. How it works, how it operates. And it flips the whole paradigm upside down, right? And I read that about 30 years ago, and that's when I went. And that's even after I healed myself, which turned a light bulb on for me, and I started looking at the world different already. Uh, But reading that book made me go, boo, shit. That's a wild ride, man, once you read that one.
Thank you for that one, Pat. Thank you for that one. Incredible book,
Yeah.
indeed. Now, yo, Pat, as an MC, a guy who makes music, I've made a lot of music, and I will continue to make music that pushes against paradigms and has strong views and opinions on politics and politicians, health advice, and just a host of peculiarities I've taken note of throughout my life. But because of that, and because I'm passionate about making that kind of music, I've faced a lot of opposition. I've faced quite a bit of adversity when trying to distribute my music, get it to certain platforms. As a man such as yourself who is knowledgeable and passionate in his field, what advice would you give to me and to anyone listening? How do you cut through the cognitive dissonance that prevents people from receiving data that's so beneficial to them?
I think it comes down to one, programming. How do they program mankind? They program you with emotions, and then they feed you information from people you're supposed to trust as an expert. Like, let's put it this way, they elicit emotions by showing you body bags, refrigerator trucks, people having convulsions in hospital beds and falling on their faces in China. And then Lester Holt comes on NBC News and says, lock yourself in place, wear a mask, stay 6 feet away from everybody. So they programmed you with fear, and then all of a sudden the information comes from Lester Holt. My God, it's Lester Holt. And he tells you this is what you have to do to survive. So they programmed you into your subconscious with fear, right? That's why when you pull out stacks of documents this big and say, look, man, this is all bullshit. Look, read this, read this. And they're like, nope, nope, because it got programmed into their subconscious with emotion. So the only way I can reprogram is either with love or more trauma, which I don't want to do.
Right.
So we can cause people trauma. We can grab them by the fucking neck and throw them down and go, listen, motherfucker, you're either going to wake up or I'm going to beat your ass right now. That'll traumatize them. But do I want to do that to another human being? No. I want to say, you're obviously a very intelligent person, and you're open-minded, and you love your children. And what I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes for a second, and I want you to visualize looking into the beautiful eyes of your child. And then I want you to ask yourself, everything you've done so far has been out of love for your child. Most people, anyway. You have fed them, you have put a roof over their head, and trying to take care of them and try to make their life better than yours was. That's out of love, because you love your children. You want to do better for them. But now if I told you that I know your fear has overridden a lot of that, and you don't want to say anything, you don't want to get in trouble, you don't want to lose your job because you want to provide for your babies, right? But if I can roll out that old shitty toolbox of chemicals you've been using on your farm for a decade, and I can roll in a new toolbox that's appropriate for the F1 race car that you're trying to run, and we can solve all your problems, and you don't need pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides because your plants are armed with their own immune system. And I can provide for your family immediately, and you can give back to your children from the grave. Well, why wouldn't you want to do that?
Right.
Because after you're dead, there's nobody there to protect your children. They gotta fend for themselves. Well, I'd kind of like to be able to provide for them from the grave with this knowledge, wake everybody up, right?
Beautiful, man. Just beautiful, Pat. Thank you for that. Wow, that is a lot, and I know that my viewers are certainly going to benefit from this here. Before we go though, Pat, because I don't want to keep you too long. There are two more things I did want to ask you. The first one, well, actually, I'll save that one for last. That'd be better. This one is off topic from what we were just discussing, but I thought it might shed some light on a certain personality. You had I would say a friend or a colleague at least at minimal named Lee Murray, who has a reputation for being a very colorful person for different reasons. And a lot of people call him a psycho and a maniac and a criminal. I am a Lee Murray fan for my own reasons. What I wanted to ask you was, being that I know you knew him, what are some of the really positive things about Lee Murray that people might not expect that he doesn't really get recognition for?
Well, Lee was a product of, he's half Moroccan, half British, right? So his father's Moroccan. And he's actually, the thing is one thing I noticed about him was he was actually a good person. He really was. And still is. Made horrible mistakes.
Right.
Did things that he shouldn't have done. Now, at the same time, again, that's where I go back and talk about trauma, financial hardship, the shit people go through that make them end up who they are, right? So Lee took the right, Lee was trying to take the right path. He was wanting to win a world title and fight his way out of poverty and do good things for his family, for his children, right? Um, Eventually, he lost his visa to be able to come to the United States and continue fighting. So his chances of winning a UFC title now are gone, right? Now that's a guy that obviously is thinking big. He's gonna be a world champ. So anyway, Lee Murray lost his visa to come to the United States to be able to fight in the UFC. So he couldn't fulfill his dream. So the guy, obviously had intentions of doing something big with his life. So he decided he was going to go a different route. And the people that don't know the story, I mean, they hired Hollywood makeup artists. They created costumes. They had fake cop cars. They had everything. And they went and picked up that guy that ran the securities vault in London. Told him his family had been in a horrible accident, and they were running him they were taking him home in a fake cop car, in fake cop uniforms, fake everything, dude. It's nuts what they did. And in no way am I justifying what they did, because doing this to people is very traumatic. You don't want to do it.
Of course.
It's fucking horrible. But what ended up happening is they held them hostage while the securities vault, they brought him back to the securities vault. He was the only guy with the ability to unlock it, and they took fork trucks and loaded up what basically was a gigantic U-Haul truck full of pallets of money, of British pounds, hundreds of millions of pounds of money. And at the time, the British pound was worth, I don't know, $2 American, right? So they planned the heist perfectly. The problem is they didn't plan what they were going to do afterward. So they went out and started buying brand new, $100,000 cars, Rolex watches, going to the French Riviera, having a good time, and
Made themselves hot.
kids from the ghetto can't go and do that shit, right? It just
Right.
doesn't happen overnight. You might work your way out of it, but it doesn't happen overnight. So everybody got arrested except Lee and his buddy Paul. They fled. And went to Morocco, where they eventually got arrested. Paul got extradited. Lee did not. He got tried in Morocco and still sits in a prison in Rabat, Morocco today.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unfortunate story, but certainly a cautionary one for anybody down on their luck and considering making that big move.
Generally, you're not going to get away with it.
You are not going to get away with it. Maybe, and even if you do, it's temporary usually.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. Yeah, but it was so he had the chance to win the world title. He was good enough to win a world title. They took that from him by removing his visa, and he decided to do something else gigantic, the biggest bank heist in world history.
Different kind of title. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yo, Pat, I really can't thank you enough for this, man. This is thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking the time and for providing some necessary education on a topic in a field that I hope my viewers will start to dig into. I know I certainly have since listening to you, and I'm learning a lot. Thank you so much, brother.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing one of your new songs come out relating America 2024 to Weimar Germany in the 30s, bro, because it's all there.
It's coming, Pat. It is coming. Absolutely.
Get ready.
My brother, have a great day, blessed day. Thank you so much.
All right, brother. Peace out.
Jeff.